In today's video, we're going to talk about 4 ways to maximize your potential. I don't want you all to slack on your potential anymore. We have too much God-given talent, gift, and ability, so we're going to get right into it. Welcome back to the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. I'm your host, Rickey Jasper. First, I want to thank you all for watching the podcast, listening to the podcast, watching the YouTube shorts, commenting, interacting. I love doing it, interacting on Instagram, DMs, all that stuff. I really appreciate it. The purpose of this podcast is for us to just be better together. Today's video, we're talking about how to not slack on your potential, because we all have so much potential, but sometimes we're just not going about it. So we're going to go get into 4 points. I'm going to run these down really quick. Number 1, time is limited. Number 2, you have more in you than you actually think. Number 3, you're missing out on opportunities if you're just not going through with your potential. And number 4, you can't serve others, and you need to break the cycle. So we're going to get right into it, into our tips and tricks segment. This segment, as always, is just practical things of how we can be better, how we can walk through things in a strategic and a simple way. Number 1 in how to ensure that you are not slacking on your potential is realizing that time is limited. There is a finite amount of time in life. There's a finite amount of time in your day. There's a finite amount of time in an hour. And if we are not utilizing that time correctly, then we're not able to do the things that we need to do. There's always going to be something else that takes priority, or there's always going to be something else that can take your attention away from walking through your potential. And I think that that's something to very much realize and identify is, are you stepping away from what you know that you should be doing to maximize potential because you're just doing something that's distracting you? Or are you stepping away from something to maximize your potential because you're actually doing something that's needed? You're called to a season of life where you're like, hey, I don't like doing this over here, or I don't like some of the responsibilities that I have over here, but I really have to put my life on hold so I can do this over here. That's something where you have to weigh and that you really have to assess, because your time in our day and everything is very limited, and you want to make sure that whatever your potential is, and let me kind of backtrack a little bit. Potential is such a broad topic, because for me, potential is, I have fitness potential, podcasting potential, speaking potential, potential in the tech industry, potential in my relationship. Those are things that are very important to me. I don't necessarily have potential in, playing the piano or playing the violin. 1, because I don't care to do it. And 2, those aren't my God-given gifts, talents, and abilities. So I don't waste time doing those things. Whatever your potential is, you have to identify that. And it's typically something that you feel that is bigger than you, that you feel that you're called to, that kind of scares you a little bit. And it's very easy to walk away from, right? So not doing this podcast early in the morning after a workout, on a Saturday is a very easy thing to not do. I have an amazing fiance. We got, family that lives near. We have great friends around. We could be doing any and everything on every Saturday morning. But, we've talked about it, and it's like, hey, the potential that I have here to help other people, for this phase and season of life, the important thing is to do this right now. It's to sacrifice some other things so we can do this right now, right? So whatever your potential is, it's going to take some sacrifice, but it's also going to take some time, in which you want to make sure that you're doing is maximizing time. Now, that is not always going to feel comfortable. Like I said, we do this on Saturday mornings. It doesn't always feel comfortable, but we also know that time is limited and we have a lot of other responsibilities. So we have to fit that in so that I can get the reps, so that I can help as many people as I possibly can, because time is limited. So figure out what your potential is and understand that time is limited. Number 2, you have more in you than you think. I think that this is an interesting thing, because I think of it from a fitness perspective. When it comes to fitness, there's, muscular potential, right? And the only way that you can maximize that potential is if you are consistently getting the reps in. And once you consistently get the reps in, you see how much better you are able to do from a muscular standpoint, from a strength standpoint, from an athleticism standpoint. But you have to get the reps in. You have to be practicing. You have to be doing the things that allow that potential to maximize. Also, your potential is in seed form. And I've said this in other episodes, but it's so true. We see trees outside and beautiful flowers and plants. And it's like, those didn't just happen overnight. Those happened over years, and it started in a small little seed. That's how your potential is. It's a seed. When Mason and I look at this podcast, we joke and we're like, we want to look back at the first podcast and be like, man, those were not good. we're really getting better. And then we want to look, back at this podcast a year from now and be like, I can't believe we were doing it that way, right? Same thing when it comes to my relationship with my fiance. We joke about, how our relationship was 4 years ago and the people that we were, but it was the building blocks. It was the at-bats. It was the fact that it was in such seed form when we were, when our date days were her coming over to my studio apartment and I was working on 413 and we were just packing and shipping, items out of manila folders because all of the apparel was in my small studio apartment, right? So it's like our relationship was in seed form and we were doing things that, were the building blocks to fuel the potential of the relationship. So whatever your potential is, you have to understand that you're not going to see it all the way to fruition on day one. And I think that's what discourages people. And I think that's what sometimes stops people from stepping through their potential, because they know, hey, I can be this person, I can do these things. But what's stopping them is the work to get there and the reality of they're just not that good when they start. Like, I love speaking. I think that I'm a very skilled and gifted speaker, but I do think that there's areas where I really need to work on. I do think that there's areas where I'm just not that good, that I need practice, that I need help, that I need mentorship. And that's an okay thing, because that's the mindset of, this is in seed form. This is new. This is something that I want to get better at. And I want to be able to look at myself 10 years down the line, back on myself and say, wow, I was really bad then, but I'm so happy that I worked through it, because I found out by working on it the areas that I was bad in so I can improve on. If you don't ever try something, and you don't ever realize that you're in seed form, you're going to miss out on the improvement. And you have to think of a seed. A seed you have to put in the ground. It's got to go through its phases of darkness. It's got to be crushed. It's got to be broken open. The roots have to be, down deep. It's got to be watered in the dark when nobody sees it. And then something small sprouts, and you can kind of see it. But what people don't realize is that those roots are already running so deep, and it's given and it has a potential to grow into something big. So make sure that you are growing your roots deep and working on your craft and on your potential with whatever it is in the dark when it doesn't feel good, because it will blossom into something. If you water it daily, if you pay attention to it, if you work on your potential or what you have potential in, it will grow eventually. Now, it might take a year, it might take 2 years, it might take 10 years, it might take a week. I don't know. But if you do something consistently, you get consistently better, it will grow. Number 3, if you are slacking on your potential, you're missing out on opportunities. This is something that I think is extremely important. I'll kind of continue with that whole seed form aspect, right? So if you are in seed form and let's say a tree starts growing, you could have someone who has a green thumb, and so they know about plants and agriculture and everything, and they could say, oh, I see that tree is growing, but it's leaning a little bit. What you need to do is you need to do XYZ to recorrect it so that it can grow even higher. So that's someone that comes in and they see that you're working on it, and the opportunity there is, wow, now you can grow even higher because someone's seen you doing something and they're giving you their knowledge. They're giving you everything that they have to help you get to the next level. Opportunities come to those who are consistently walking in their purpose, who are consistently walking in an area where they have potential. You don't want to miss out on opportunities because you're too scared to have an at-bat. Dating too, it's like if you're scared to talk to the girl or the guy, then you're never really going to have an opportunity to see where that thing goes. It's never going to go anywhere because you've never given yourself the opportunity. And my thought is the reason why a lot of people do not go and take an opportunity is because they lack courage and they are fearful. And living life like that all the time is interesting because you go through life and you see a lot of opportunities that if you had the courage, you would be like, I would love to do that. I would love to talk to that person. I would love to do that athletic feat. I would love to do that business venture. I would love to do whatever it is. I would love to work my craft a little bit more. And that I would love to is the thing that you should be doing. You're missing out on so many opportunities because you're not walking through the thing in your mind and in your heart that you're just like, oh, I would love to. Because typically it's, I would love to, but. And that whatever comes after but is typically just an excuse to excuse you away from doing something that you would really, really want to do. And if you take away anything after that excuse, you would start to see your life in a different capacity. You would start to see your day-to-day differently. You would start to look at things differently because you would see everything as opportunities and not just fearful things that happen that you need a ton of courage to do because you're so fearful. So don't miss out on opportunities. Number 4, you can't serve others and you can't break the cycle. This is something that I think is really interesting. If we see in America, we, have a very high obesity rate, right? And I don't always fault that on just specific individuals, but what I do fault that on, or what I do see more so a trend in, is it's families that are typically obese, then the kids are obese, and so on and so forth. And you look at it and it's easy to point a finger and say, well, they just should stop eating whatever and stop doing whatever. And it's like, well, that might not be the case, right? The cycle hasn't been broken because unhealthy habits are happening from parents, and they're bringing unhealthy food into the house, and the kids are only seeing and eating unhealthy food, and they're not doing anything but sitting on the couch, and there's no exercise. Then the kids grow up not seeing another way. All they see is, this is how we do life. We sit on the couch, we watch TV, we eat unhealthy food, and we complain about how we feel, and then we have kids, and we just perpetuate the cycle, right? So when you don't walk through your potential, you end up perpetuating the cycle, because then you tell your kids, you tell other people who are in contact with you, you can do everything that you want to do. And they look at you and they say, great, what are the things that you want to do that you've always done? And you can't say anything. And it's like, well, I was scared. And so then they sit back and they're like, well, it's okay for me to be scared and not do anything. And that perpetuates the cycle. The reason why I have a lot of courage when it comes to getting on camera and speaking and just doing stuff and moving across the country, from Virginia to San Diego, not knowing anybody, 7-8 years ago, and now in Texas. And a lot of these things that I've done is because I saw my parents do it, right? My parents, from a health standpoint, they wake up at 5 a.m. They work out. They keep their bodies healthy. When I was 2 years old and they were in their late 20s, they moved to Berlin, Germany with the State Department and didn't know anybody, didn't know the language, had my brother there, and it was like they just did stuff. And so anytime I wanted to do something that scared me, I would talk to them, and their push was like, hey, just do it. The worst that can happen is that you fail and that you're kind of back to square one. Like, that's the worst that can happen, right? So I saw that, and my focus, especially with this podcast, is to really try to help, give perspective on why you want to make sure that you're unblocking yourself, because you can't serve others. You can't help other people get past their blocks, because if you're scared to get past you, people follow what you do more than what you say. So if you're telling people you can do anything and you can do this and that, but you're not doing it, then you can't serve them, because they're ultimately going to do what you do. And that's in so many other facets and phases of life. And what I really want is, I want to make sure that, especially as I'm getting across in this podcast, is, serving others is sometimes just breaking a cycle. It's sometimes looking at, hey, I've been taught this. I've seen this all the way down in my family. I've seen this all the way down from my friend group, but it stops with me. I'm going to do the things that allow me to step through my potential. I'm going to do the things that allow, when others look at me and when others encounter me, they can say, he or she is saying this and they're doing this and it matches. And I know no matter what, I can trust that person, because their words and what they want match their actions. Their words and what they are requiring me to do, or what they're encouraging me to do, matches what they do. And so if you go about it with that mindset and you think, hey, others are watching me, and am I really doing the things that I say I'm doing, or am I just telling people, hey, you can do anything that you want, but I'm not doing it? Then you have to kind of recalibrate and reassess where you're at. So I hope that this helps. I'll run through it really quick. Number one, your time is limited. Your time on this earth is limited. You don't have time to waste to, figure out, hey, is it time for me to do a thing? No, do it now, because tomorrow you're going to be older than you were today, and so on and so forth. Do it now. Number two, you have more in you than you think. You have to realize that. But in order to pull that out of you, you have to get the at-bats. You have to get the reps. You have to be doing the things, and you have to practice so you can make sure that you can get that out of you. Number 3, you're missing out opportunities. The more that you do a thing, the more that you practice, the more that you step in your potential, the more opportunities present themselves. People opportunities, financial opportunities, positional opportunities, locational opportunities. These things start to present themselves when you start to work and you start to move. Number 4, you cannot serve others because you are not breaking a cycle. If you are not walking through your potential, you can't serve others by showing them that you're living in a way that inspires them. You can talk to them any sort of way that inspires them, but your actions aren't matching, your actions aren't aligning. So at the end of the day, they are not really going to feel or do what you do because they don't see you do what you say. So I hope that this whole message helps. I love doing this. Our word of the day or our word of the week for this episode is development. Now, why is it development? Because development just implies that there's a process that is going to take place, that skills develop over time because you're putting in the work. Potential is not realized until you start to put in the work. And once you realize your potential, you start to gain momentum. When you gain momentum, you see how high you can fly. And when you see how high you can fly, other people see you flying up there and they want to do the same thing. And they're coming to you saying, how did you do that thing? And then you're the person that is lifting up everybody else who needs you. So I hope that this episode helped you out. I love talking about it. I hope you love listening about it. If it helps you, please like, comment, share, subscribe, do all the fun stuff, and we will see you next time. Peace. Thank you all so much for watching the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. If you like this podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, send it to friends, use a carrier pigeon, do whatever you have to do. We hope that this inspires you to chase your greater vision in your life and for us to continually and consistently do it together.